Following transfer deadline day yesterday, Sunderland brought in 5 new players and letting 4 go over the window. And joining me to discuss said transfers is former Sunderland player Gordon Armstrong. Gordon, thanks a lot for coming on as always. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jack. Not too bad. And you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Kicking us straight off, one of the players who were brought in, Jake Vogelman's highly rated by Southampton. The academy he comes from, which is quite a prolific academy in itself. I think he's came in a position that needed plugging. Are you overall happy with the decision to bring him in?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're certainly in the market for looking for a left back and a little bit of cover. Obviously, it looks like, I'm not sure Mcfadden is an out-and-out like left back, to be fair, and it looks like maybe Denver Hugh might be struggling for the rest of the season with injury. So we definitely needed somebody to fill that position. So yeah, let's see how the young lad does. And I'm hearing some good things about him. So Southampton have obviously produced a lot of good players over the years. So hopefully he's another one, and he maybe comes in and gets his chance. But he might have to wait a couple of games, I would think. But hopefully gets his chance at some stage and shows what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite positive to see Johnson put him on the bench literally a day after he signed. I wouldn't mind him saying getting a bit game time tomorrow in the cup, or is it today even? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
today rather. Just to give him a bit run out in the cup, an hour or so. But yeah, as you say, I think he comes from quite a highly rated academy as well. And I think you're touching there with Callum Mcfadden. To me, he doesn't look like an out-and-out left back who can play in a back four.
No, he doesn't. No, not in the back four. No, to be fair, the lad's done okay. He hasn't. I don't think he's been horrendous. I've seen most of the games he's played, and I think he's done all right. But he's certainly not an attacking fullback, and I think that's probably what the new gaffer's looking for, is somebody to get forward a bit more and produce a bit of quality at the top end of the pitch. And we've been lacking that a little bit, haven't we? So I would think the idea, yeah.
Yeah, another player was brought in, of course, Jordan Jones, a player who was attracted by championship clubs. Looks like he's a bit of a flair player, got a little bit of pace about him. He does potentially have a bit of an attitude, and there was, I believe, rumours, I'm not sure if they're entirely true, that he did break Steven Gerrard's COVID rules and he's fallen out with them since. But do you think he's the right type of player we need, someone with a bit of pace going forward, especially out wide, just to stretch defences and make things happen in the final third?
Yeah, I've seen him play before, and he's definitely got a bit of pace about him. He's quite direct. Wants to produce at the top end of the pitch again. So I mean, he's obviously right-footed, I'd say, predominantly. So he can play either side. But we're desperately lacking some pace, certainly at the top end of the pitch. He should be a good addition. He hasn't played a load of games for Rangers. I think he's played something like 10 games for Rangers, but a lot of that has maybe been disciplinary sort of things. I think there's been the problems within that. So, maybe living back at home. I think the lad's from like Redcar or something. So maybe he can live back at home, and maybe that settles him down, and, hopefully does well for us. And he might be one that, that we might manage to try and get in the summer. And so that could be a really interesting one. And if he does well, I think that could make a big difference to the team, yeah.
Yeah, I just think we're a bit slow going forward. We don't have much pace in the final third, and that's why I was so glad to see us bring him in.
Yeah, definitely. Potentially be a great signing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another player who came from Scotland, of course, Ross Stewart, 6'4" target man. He does have quite a poor return of goals this season if you consider him as a striker, but I believe he's been playing out of position out on the left wing for Ross County. And as well, I think an interesting point I would raise with that is if you look at Charlie White's return before Johnson came in, especially in the last 2 seasons, he hasn't scored a lot of goals, but, Johnson seems to find a format where we can he seems to be more or less getting on score sheet every game. Do you think it's going to be a similar story with Ross Stewart, where he can come in, he doesn't have the best return, but that could change under Johnson?
Well, hopefully so, yeah. I mean, the only thing is you'd say right now is, you would look and you would think, I know the kid's played out in a wide position at times with Ross County. I spoke to a few people about him, and he has played out there on either side at times. But I would say, at 6'3", 6'4", you're talking about somebody that would generally be a centre forward. So it's either going to be one or the other, isn't it? And so that has been the case not just with this manager, but the last manager. We've only really played with one out and out centre forward, as I'd call it anyway. So maybe he's going to be that's up to the lad, isn't it? He goes in if he gets his chance, and then hopefully he does really well. And like you said, he probably needs to add a few more goals to his CV as a centre forward. But I'm hearing quite good things about him. Yeah, he seems to have, I think he's a bit similar to a Kyle Lafferty, is what I've been told. Yeah. Somebody that over the years, it's I looked after Big Kyle. So yeah, it can be hopefully a player that does well for us in the future, and I understand that that's the type of area that we're going to sign players from probably in the future, like Scotland and places like that. If hopefully we don't stay in League One, but if we did, that could be an area that could be productive for us, Scottish players.
Yeah, definitely. There seems to be a link between the Scottish Premier League and League One. There seems to be a lot of transfers going between them, especially since we've got relegated. I know Jack Ross, obviously, probably his first instinct was to sign a lot of them just because he knows that division well. But even still, since then, we've had a few come through the doors who have came from that division. It just seems to have a bit of a link between them. One thing you said there, saying that we seem to be playing one out striker. There's a lot being made of the kind of 4-2-2 system we've been playing. Kind of 4-4-2, but with the wingers being a bit further forward, a bit narrower. Do you see Aidan O'Brien as a second striker then, and then White as the only out-and-out striker?
Yeah, I still say that, and I think O'Brien's almost played in and he's sort of gone wherever he wanted. Basically, he hasn't. I agree, it's been a different system, but I'm not sure that O'Brien's played as what I would call as a double act as strikers. I think he's been a bit unlucky. He's had a few shots blocked and stuff that probably were going in and things, and he needs a goal. There's no doubt about it. O'Brien definitely. So I would like to see that go in soon, and hopefully then he can take off as well. To be fair, because it hasn't quite happened for the kid just yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, White's scoring loads of goals at the moment, but you can't just rely on one player. If White picks up a suspension or an injury, or even if he just kind of stops hitting form, what happens then? You need someone who can come in and score goals. And I think part of the reason why White is scoring so many goals is because of O'Brien, in a way. I think O'Brien doing a lot of the dog work and linking up a lot, especially with the wider players. It creates a lot of space for White. But of course, you can't just rely on having White as the only goal scorer, because what happens if he does pick up an injury? You then leave yourself without a goal scorer, and we've seen where that can take us.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I think predominantly the business that we've done has been good, because obviously we got two strikers out, which you probably want to go on and speak about, but yeah, to bring another lad in, a young lad that's got potential. That's the way to go for me. So yeah, I think that's a good bit of business, and yeah, we still haven't got it quite right. I don't think there's any massive sort of secret in that, but at least we're looking like we're trying to do the right things for the first time in a while, anyway.
Yeah, the first player was brought in, rather, but the final we're going to go through, Carl Winchester. Came with a really decent pedigree from Forest Green Rovers. A lot of people call him the golden boy of League Two, and saying he was this great centre midfielder who was time for him to step up. Do you not think, with the players we've got in the squad at the moment, what with Grant Ledbetter and Dodson, who have just loaned out, Power's there? I know he's been pushed out right back, but Power's still there. Do you not, Scowen as well? Do you think it's kind of been a little bit of almost a pointless signing when you bring someone in who just kind of fills the same void as a lot of them, as a kind of slow defensive midfielder who's not going to get into the final third much?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. The only thing I'd say about that is obviously the manager knows he's had or at Oldham, so he knows exactly what he is and what he can do. So, that one's down to him, really. My biggest problem with all of that is they're all very similar. All the midfield players we've got are all whole midfield players. None of them get in the box. I think the only one that probably slightly different is Embleton, who can get in the box, but still hasn't done it in the first team for me anyway. Hasn't done enough yet to be included every week anyway. And he's obviously got potential and signed a new contract and gone out to Blackpool. But yeah, that was the biggest thing. If we were going to bring another midfielder in, I would have thought it was somebody that breaks and gets in the box and looks like scoring a goal, although they're very hard to come across now.
Yeah, completely agree with you. I was going to ask you that later on, is if we could sign anyone else, who would it be? But I think you're spot on when you say a number 8 type of player, someone who can get into the final third and really create chances and maybe even pop with a few goals. But I think a player who I've got in mind who could fill that void just coming back from injury is Luke O'Nien. He seems to have that ability, that energy, I think, going forward, and the ability to just link up with the forwards, get in the right areas and score goals. Do you see him as someone who can kind of come back from his injury now with Power playing at right back, who can come in and push it in the midfield finally?
Well, if that's what the manager wants, if he wants a midfielder that that does that, then I think he's the only one that can do that. And I think, to be fair to Luke O'Nien, he isn't. He certainly isn't everything as a footballer. But one thing he gives you is endeavour, commitment. And he does get in the box, and he's brave as anything. He gets his head on things. He makes things happen through his endeavour, really, more than ever. I feel. And he's the one that I agree with you 100%. If I was going to do anything right now, I'd put O'Nien in the middle. To be decided who you want to play at right back. There's obviously options there, depending on what things, how things progress with power and stuff. But for me, I'd rather have O'Nien in the middle and let him get in the box, because we need somebody like that. I see times when crossed into the box and there's only Charlie in there sometimes, and you're never going to score enough goals unless you flood that box and get 4 or 5 people in there to score goals. It's just as simple as that, and we don't do it enough, for me anyway. I don't think.
Spot on. If you've only got one player in the box, they're going to get man marked. Is the first thing. The 2 centre backs, 3 centre backs, however many defenders in the box, you can just man mark them at the game. If you have another one in there, all of a sudden they've got to check over the other shoulder, and you get a bit of space created. And you have different people in different areas to aim for. If the cross is a bit wayward, someone else can pick it up. So I definitely think we need more runners from midfield. It's something I've definitely noticed myself.
Yeah.
Kind of touching on midfielders, I guess you mentioned it earlier with Elliot Embleton. You're saying that you don't think he's quite ready to play in the first team yet, and I think that's a fair point. But would you have rather seen him stay in the first team just to offer us that extra kind of number 8 style player, as opposed to go out on loan when we can't use him anymore, but he will get more minutes?
I think you could say that, certainly, but I suppose it's like all these things. You've got to balance up whether or not he is going to play enough games, and I suppose that was their decision. They must have spoken to Blackpool, and Blackpool give him assurances that he will play, and that's what the lad needs more than anything. You have to get experience. We all hope we were not in League One next season, but if we were, then I suppose if he comes back, he's played 20 odd games, then you can rely on him next season to do a job. So it's a difficult one. Yeah, I agree with you in some respects. He is somebody that he's the one of the midfielders that can get in the box and maybe get us a goal or two. But unfortunately for the lad, it's been very much broken up for him. He's had a few injuries, and he hasn't ever stayed had a run of games in the team, which is what you need as a young player. So I can understand why they have let him go out anyway.
Yeah, I just think maybe we could have we're letting someone go who is kind of one of the only players who can fill a certain void. So a little bit concerned that because we didn't bring anyone else in who kind of fills a similar role. As much as he isn't ready yet, he was something. Speaking of midfielders, again, one of the first players, I think the second player, to leave the club, the transfer window, only on loan, George Dobson. I was speaking to the Wimbledon commentator the other day, and he said Dobson's played 3 games. He says he's been one of the better players and one of the shining lights of those 3 games. That made me thought, I've defended Dobson quite a bit. I don't think he's nearly as bad as a lot of our fans make out. Do you think Wimbledon maybe just suits him a little bit more, club with lower expectations, and hopefully he can hit the ground running, pick up a bit of form and come back to us a different player?
Well, that's the hope, isn't it? Like I say, we have got a hell of a lot of players like that who are all similar, and very rarely do you find that all these players will play all season. So it depends what you want as a player. Do you want to be at a big club and have the chance to do something, or do you want to play every week? And obviously, no disrespect to Wimbledon, but their expectations shouldn't be as high as what Sunderland's are. So for me, I'd rather be at a bigger club with a chance to do something, really. But if he obviously felt that he wasn't going to get a game, so he had to go out there and play. So fair play to the kid. At least he's got out and played games. So I understand that as well. As a footballer, he should want to play. Yeah,
definitely. No point, just sitting, taking a wage, doing nothing. Kind of a player who might be able to offer us something going forward, but isn't really playing in the team much at the moment, is Chris Maguire. I'm a bit concerned about him being left out. I think he's the type of player who he'll go most of the season, not do much, but then he'll have 5 to 10 game spells quite often where he can score a goal having done nothing all game. He can do nothing for 89 minutes, but the ball will fall him in the right area, and you can count on him that he will stick in the back of the net. Do you think that Lee Johnson's maybe just struggling to find a way to fit him into the system?
Yeah, I suppose everybody again. Each manager's different, and some managers like a lot of flair players, and obviously we've got McGeady who's come back in under Johnson, And you would say that Maguire, McGeady, similar types of players, it's difficult to have two of them in your team that, in all fairness to them, you know, they do their little bits going back, but they're not defensive-minded at all. So it's difficult to have two of them types of players in your team. Although at times I have seen them play really well together, to be fair. You know, they're both obviously good footballers, technical footballers with real ability. The one thing I would worry about is if Maguire stays out the team for a while, you'd see him struggle with his fitness. He doesn't look like a lad that's naturally fit, and you know, maybe he doesn't do all the right things sometimes. I don't know. I don't know enough to say that. I shouldn't say that really, but yeah, worry a little bit on that score as well. But you know, he's you know, whether he keeps his fitness to the right level that it would need to be. But there's no doubt about it. To be fair, I spoke to one or two people when he did come in from Bury, and they were very, very negative about him because I've played for Bury before. But he came in and he's done a good job. There's no doubt about that. Over the years, he's been excellent. For the 2 years he's been here, he's knuckled down, he's worked hard, and he's scored some important goals at times. So you know, it's pretty harsh on him really to be not included every week. But that's football, I'm afraid. That's what happens. And obviously, Aidan McGeady coming back in has probably hurt him. I would say probably more than anything.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at his age, because I know he's getting on a bit now. 32, it is, just turned 32. I'm just a bit concerned with his age that if you leave a player out for so long, the fitness can just completely drop off. And I'm just a bit concerned that, you know, coming into the second half, later stages of the season, when we could need someone to, when White does drop off on form, just nick us that goal, which he does seem to have a knack for doing. But if he's not fit enough to do it, then I don't think he can do it. So are you at all concerned that if Johnson doesn't start giving him games, he might just drop out the squad entirely, and that could be the end of the season, the end of the season, because I think he's out of contract at the end of the season as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance of that. Like I say, I think he obviously prefers McGeady right now, and he thinks more of McGeady. But things can change quickly in football as well, to be fair. If McGeady gets an injury, or maybe there's a couple of other wide lads do, because obviously Gooch is going to come back in as well. So there's a lot of competition for places in certain areas. Obviously, we've got the new lad as well from Rangers as well. So, you know, it's like I say, it's not easy. But like, you would worry about it. There's no doubt about it that if he's not playing every week, that his fitness is not going to be a level, even with modern day training and all the things they do with sports scientists and things like that. That he's one of them that you would worry about a little bit. I have to be honest,
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Two players who did leave, of course, both yesterday. Danny Graham, first of all, terminating his contract on mutual terms, and Will Grigg going back out on loan to MK Dons. I don't think anyone can have any complaints or any concerns about Danny Graham leaving. Just to confirm that you are in full support. You know, it hasn't worked out for him, and best of luck to him. But you know, thankfully,
no, it hasn't worked out for Danny at all, has it? You know, he hasn't played games. What he has, probably half a dozen, something like that. He hasn't looked like, you know, he's going to score enough goals for whatever reason, and he just hasn't looked sharp, has he? He hasn't looked aggressive or sharp or all them things you'd want from a big centre forward, to be honest. And to be fair, it just never seems to work for him at Sunderland. I don't know why. Well, you know, people can have their own ideas, but it just hasn't. He did well at Blackburn previously. He scored goals. He'd done well, and I didn't think it was the worst signing on a free, to be honest.
Same.
Just know it all.
I think going back probably would have been smarter to sign a player who's got a bit of pace instead of a striker who was kind of like Charlie White 2.0. But at the same time, I did think, well, actually, he'll probably score a lot of goals at this level, and he's a experienced player at this level, experienced at high level. He's come towards the end of his career. He's got plenty of experience. Why? I didn't think it was a bad sign. I think a lot of people have jumped on the bandwagon of why did we sign him when he's been bad. But I think it was interesting to get to say that. Really, it wasn't. We didn't think it was that bad of a sign at the time.
Yeah, no, I agree. It just, like I say, it just never worked out. And again, he suffers from the same syndrome. Like, we can only really play one of them types of forwards up front. So, you know, at the end of the day, Charlie's the one that's got the goals. So he's the one that stayed in the team, and Danny suffered because of that. And again, when you get older and you're not playing every week, it is harder to keep that fitness sort of thing. So, you know, you can understand a bit that he has struggled.
Yeah. Finally, as well with Will Grigg, he's the final player we're going to go through who's left. Went on loan to MK Dons. Did a part of you maybe think best to keep someone just for cover, because we do now only leave ourselves with two out and out strikers, and then we've got the odd one who can come in like O'Brien or Gooch who can play as a second striker. But do you think it would have been smarter, even though Grigg hasn't hit the ground running, just to have another striker on the books, or was it just time to go and time to call his time at Sunderland to an end and hopefully he can get firing somewhere else on loan?
No, I felt it was the right thing to do, to be fair. I think it's certainly on the 2 outs. I think they've done the right thing. Probably the right thing by the players as well, to be honest. I think Will Grigg needs to go out, play games. You never know what happens in football. He might even come back and, but maybe what's best for the lad is he needs a new, a change, a new club. And I know that's not happening straight away, but he needs to play games, that's for certain. And he's just not going to get the games as things stand at Sunderland. So it's best for him. It's best for everybody. I think it's best for the club that he goes out. We'd recoup some of his wages, I would think. And, he goes out and plays games in it. And, it might be that leads to somebody else taking him if he does well. I have to say, it hasn't worked out again. Unfortunately, it wasn't... I think most people thought it was a great signing at the time, probably all of us, but it just hasn't worked out for the lad, and he's just never looked happy here at all, at all. So unfortunately, I think it's the right thing to do.
I mean, my thinking is hopefully he goes back to MK Dons, a club where he's been before, and he's got happy memories. He seems to work a little bit harder, and maybe he does get these chances that he was going on about last night. So that if he gets chances, he'll score goals. I think he's forgetting that he's had quite a lot of chances anyway, but hopefully he goes back there, a bit more of a positive attitude, and he fits back in, and he comes back in the summer. I think he'll have a year after his contract, and we can just sell him and get some money for him and kind of draw a line under that, really, is the way I say it. I don't see his time at Sunderland lasting any longer than it absolutely has to. I mean, speaking of strikers, Charlie Wyke, he done okay. I think a lot of fans are forgetting that he was actually still doing quite well under Parkinson so far this season, but since Lee Johnson's came in, he's like a completely different player than we've ever seen. His goal scoring record, I think now, his ratio this season is better than when Josh Madgers was here. We'll all be in agreement that Josh Madgers was out of this world in terms of his goal scoring ability. What do you think's managed to get him to score goals?
Well, it's a funny thing. I think if you ask any striker, they'll say more than anything, it's just a confidence. Once you start scoring, you believe that you're always going to score. And the biggest thing is confidence. There's no doubt about that. If you walk out on that pitch and you believe you're going to score, there's every chance you will. And when you're on a bad run, no matter who you are, and things are going against you, and it's not going in the net, whoever it is, a striker, wide player, whatever, then you tend not to probably believe that. You might tell yourself that you do, but you don't. But when you're scoring goals, you believe you can do anything, and you believe you can achieve anything. And he's doing well at the minute. Yeah, Charlie's never going to be again he's never going to be Thierry Henry, is he? But he's he's done well. Yeah, he's scoring goals. He's got 15 odd goals, 16 odd goals. He's he's done great this season. Nobody can argue. If he doubles that up by the end of the season, he's had an unbelievable season, hasn't he? He'd probably end up, League One top scorer. So, hopefully that continues. Yeah.
Definitely. I just say maybe it is a confidence thing. I think what happened to him was just playing to his strengths a bit more. We aren't booting the ball up in the hope he can do everything himself. We're kind of letting other players do the work for him, and he can just kind of float in and around the box and pick up on loose balls and crosses and just kind of get on the end of things. I think he's the type of player where if you just get enough chances to him within about 10 yards of the goal, and he doesn't have to turn much or beat anyone, I do think he will. He is a decent finisher instinctively, a bit like Darren Bent in a way, maybe, where he can just kind of stick his foot on the end of something and he instinctively knows where to put the ball. Now that the transfer window's done, is there anyone else in the club or any other positions that you think, is there anyone else in the club that you would have liked to leave, or any other gaps you think that need plugging?
No, I don't think so. I think we've got a big squad. You know what I mean? We've got a lot of players still in there, so I don't think there's anything we desperately needed. Maybe people talk about the goalkeepers. Possibly, if you could have got a better goalkeeper, I don't know if they looked at that at all, but that could be probably the one area for me that you would have looked at. I think our back four's done all right generally, although obviously losing Hume was a bit of a killer. That gap, hopefully, we got plenty of midfield players, like you say, for certain. You'd still like that. You'd like to have signed one more striker, I think, or a lone one, like you say, with a bit of pace that could maybe do something different. I mean, we signed the kid last year.
Right, we're back. Gordon's phone just died. But before you went, I think we're just going through, is there anywhere else in the squad that you think we need a bit more strength in, or any players rather you would have liked to see us go?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see as I'd like maybe one more load up front here, somebody a bit different. Maybe as a little bit like last year with Semedo, I think, but the boy from Bristol City. But it didn't work out for us, to be fair. But obviously he's done really well this year, so sort of shows what could be done. Somebody like that, a little bit different with a bit pace maybe, but it wasn't to be either way. So we stick with what we got with him. We should be. Our squad should be good enough to get certainly in the playoffs anyway. But just fingers crossed and hope things go well now. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think just a different option up front that isn't a target man, because we've got two players now who are fairly similar. Just someone to stretch defences, get in behind a little bit, and offer a different challenge. I think to defences. They don't really know how to prepare for you. Really. One other thing as well, I think I seen you tweeting about it the other day, but what did you make of the stall of the takeover that happened the other day, where Mcfadden and Donald have got to prove that they can keep the clubs sufficiently funded or something?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, you just hope that it's concluded now. I think again, it would be the betterment for everybody. I think the guys have come in and it hasn't gone in the way I would think they would imagine that they wanted to. So hopefully, this French lad, KLD, will hopefully get his majority shareholding, and it gets done in the next couple of weeks, sort of thing. We're just all in the same boat, really, just waiting to find out what, when, and if it happens, sort of thing. So he's hoping that it gets done. Yeah.
Yeah. Based off everything we've talked about today and all the transfers, where do you see the squad finishing now at the end of the season, and what do you think the maximum of our potential is under Lee Johnson with the squad we've currently got?
I think that from the position we're in right now, you would say that probably playoffs is a realistic sort of hope for where we're going to finish, and I think we can finish in the playoffs. The top two is going to have to be a great run for us to get in there, but there's not a lot of difference between any of the teams in the league, and I include ourselves in that. We're not far better than anybody else. I think that's been proven, but we've done great away from home, so I think that's the one big strength that we've got. We have got a good defence. And attacking wise, we rely heavily, obviously, on Charlie at the minute. So that would be a bit of a concern if he got injured. But obviously, we hope this new guy does well as well. So there's like I said, I think that this window has been positive for the club, and hopefully we can finish well. Like I say, I think realistically we can finish the playoffs. I don't think we'll finish in the top two as things stand. But you never know. Like you say, there's not a lot in the league, and if we can start winning our home games, then anything's possible, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's all down to form, really. I think it just comes down on if we can really get a coherent squad and go on a good run, then I think top two is absolutely achievable. But if not, I think I'm more on the lines of playoffs. But Gordon, I think that's where we'll leave it there. Thanks a lot for coming on.
No worries, Jack, lad. Good to speak to you.
Yeah, mate, pleasure, mate, and we'll leave it there.